What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds. Today we're going to be chatting about the Ahsoka series, talking about my overall thoughts on this show, along with why I feel like this show just feels and personifies what Star Wars is. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, help me reach 1,000 subscribers here on this channel, you guys. I've been working towards that goal for such a long time. It would mean so much to me if we can get there. And subscribe to Top 10 Character Moments as well. I'm doing some great work over there, you guys. Make sure you guys are checking out that channel as well. So I'm not done talking about the Ahsoka series, you guys, because I absolutely loved this show. It's very much a continuation of the Star Wars Rebels story, a continuation of the Filoni-verse, of the Mando-verse, all of these stories connecting and intertwining. And this was very much a show that was never meant to be like a start and an end to something. It was solely meant to be the next chapter in this story that Dave Filoni is telling. And I want to start talking about some of the things that I very much enjoyed right now. So first up, talking about the Master and Padawan relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine. They never really fully explained what happened and why there was that separation. There were definitely some things that they alluded to, but nothing that was concrete. Yet when I saw them together, it just very much felt like a master and apprentice relationship. And one of the things that I enjoyed so much is this idea of sort of having them, reunited with each other for a little bit, going on a mission together. The idea Huang said of like, you guys were always better when you were together. And then what happens when they separate in that episode, right? Bad things happen. And then it's almost like Sabine recognizes that. And then at the very end, when she's left with the choice of, do I go with my friend that I haven't seen for so long, or do I go to save my master? And she chooses her master. She chooses to be with her. And I think that's just such a credit to Sabine and her character arc, because this entire time, like, she wanted to find Ezra. She wanted to be with her friend. People kept saying it's like, this is the only family that she has left ever since her family was wiped out on Mandalore. But it was almost like her coming to that realization that Ahsoka is kind of like her family as well, and she didn't want to see anything bad happen to her. Hera's arc in this journey, I actually very much enjoyed. Didn't enjoy the politics of it all, but I enjoyed Hera standing up to the politics. But even forgetting about that, like the first two episodes, I felt like Hera played a big role in, especially in that second episode when her and Ahsoka go to Corellia. And shout out to Mary Elizabeth who played her. She did a phenomenal job just portraying that mother figure that is Hera. The joy in Hera when she finally sees Ezra. The emotion that comes through her early on when the senators are talking about his death. Because Ezra always was like that first son to Hera that she never had, For those that have watched Star Wars Rebels, you guys know how strong of a bond that Ghost crew has with one another. And I guess that's a good transition talking about Ezra, and Hera together. Seeing Ezra again, you guys, it was like, oh my gosh, like we're finally getting this. We're finally figuring out where Ezra went, what he's been doing. It's not what I expected, but I still thought that it was good. I thought that Ezra was going to be captured by Thrawn, but no, like, obviously, whenever they got to their destination, he got out of there, which I guess was a smart move when you've got an entire Star Destroyer full of stormtroopers, you got some death troopers in there. Let's talk about Ezra Bean, or the lack of Ezra Bean, because it's very clear, you guys, for everyone that's still on the, oh, Ezra and Sabine must be together. It's very clear that Dave has no intention of doing that. And it's just going to be, two people that are just really good friends with each other, which I'm not upset by. Now, do I think that they could have done something here? I 100% think that they could have, because when they're in the Ghost crew, they're, a lot younger. They very much have that brother-sister relationship, but there was a part of me that thought like, okay, well, maybe with some time away from each other, like it had been a decade, maybe there are some feelings there that haven't been touched and they kind of act on it a little bit, but that's clear that that's not what they're doing. And I've got no problem with that. And speaking of Sabine, you guys, Sabine is now a Force wielder. She just straight up used the Force. And when she did use the Force for the first time, I went crazy for it. And it does very much open up this idea that anybody can use the Force. But you have to be open to it. You have to have proper training and discipline. I mean, because you had people like Han Solo that didn't believe in the Force at all, you know, when we first see him. I think it's just one of those things with Sabine using the Force that I'm still going to have to get used to, because whenever I think of her, I just think of her as this, you know, amazing Mandalorian warrior. But now she's somebody that can potentially be a Jedi. And it is cool. Let's talk about Baylan and Shin. I absolutely loved both of these characters in this show, and I cannot wait to see more of them, because I do believe that we are going to get more of Baylan Skoll's story. Unfortunately, Ray Stevenson just, you know, won't be able to play him anymore. And it really sucks, because that master and apprentice bond, you know, kind of what I was talking about before with Ahsoka and Sabine, that master and apprentice chemistry very much applied to Baylan and Shin in this show. And I think it was episode 6 where they had like some conversations with each other, like longer conversations, more than just a couple of words. And that was something that I always kind of wanted to explore with Star Wars, is seeing like, you know, maybe not like dark side wielders having these conversations, because a lot of the times the stories are told through the light side. But to get those interactions with dark side characters, I know that, you know, Baylan and Shin aren't technically Sith, but they are, you know, I guess, dark side Force wielders. They're not Jedi. We are no Jedi. The series told us that there's more Night Sisters. We've got the 3 Great Mothers, as they're called, and then what I would assume all of that cargo was that they were transporting are Night Sisters that have fallen, potentially. Or maybe they're cloning Night Sisters, or, you know, whatever the case is. But there's a chance that there are a lot more Night Sisters out there. And one of the things that does make me curious, you guys, is what does that mean for Merrin, a Night Sister from the Jedi games, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. For those who played those games, you guys know what I'm talking about. But like, her whole character arc at this point has been like, all my sisters are gone. I don't have a family anymore. I have the Mantis crew, which is like my new family. Her goal is to pretty much just like avenge her fallen sisters. So what does that do to Merrin? If she's still around at this point in the timeline, what does that do for her? Maybe that's something that gets explored at some point. And man, I've said it for a long time now, but I would love it if they brought Cal Kestis into live action, if they brought Merrin in, they just took characters from the video games, put them in the show. One of the things that the show did a great job at as well is the cameos. We saw plenty of characters that we know and love from things like Star Wars Rebels. We get to see Ryder Azadi, played by Clancy Brown, who voiced him in Rebels, which I thought was just fantastic. We had Jai Kell there for a moment, who I guess is now a senator. He was one of the cadets at the Imperial Academy when Ezra was there for that one episode. And then having C-3PO in there, of course, his reputation precedes him. So why does this show feel like Star Wars to me? And then there might be people that might be asking, well, what does that mean it feels like Star Wars to you? And I think that what I mean is this. There have been certain projects over the past couple years that they have done their shows and there are elements to them, or even just the shows themselves, that don't feel like Star Wars to me. And a big component of that is just, especially with something like Andor, is that the Force doesn't feel present in that show. And Dave Filoni said this once, that the Force is the core of Star Wars. And I completely agree. It's kind of what helps make Star Wars stand out, in my opinion, because the Force is something that you don't see in other franchises, you know? It's that thing that helps make Star Wars in a similar way that I feel like lightsabers do, and the way that those are put together and choreographed. And this show definitely had that. It had the Force, it had lightsabers, but it also had a good story, a story that I could be invested in the, you know, Ahsoka, Sabine trying to stop the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, trying to save Ezra. And along with that, I'm invested in the characters. Characters that I have loved since Clone Wars, since Rebels. Clone Wars and Rebels, you guys, I've spoken many a times, is like my favorite parts of Star Wars. Ahsoka and Sabine are two of my favorite Star Wars characters, period. So of course I was gonna like this show, because I like both of them. But to be fair, they probably could have been on like a pony farm or gambling in Las Vegas, and I'd still probably be invested. Maybe not to this extent, but I'd still be curious because it's them. So yeah, when you look at like the big three, right? Like Force, character, story, I think this show excelled in all of them. And credit as well for all the lightsaber action in this show as well. And listen, I know that there were people, I've seen people obviously criticizing the lightsaber choreography, and you know, it's just one of those things where, like, I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. Do I think that the fights were on par with stuff that, like, what the prequels were doing with Obi-Wan versus Vader or Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Maul? No, but I thought they had some incredible lightsaber battles in this show. Like, I enjoyed the times that Sabine went against Shin Hati. I enjoyed the Ahsoka Baylan fights. I really enjoyed the Ahsoka Morgan Elsbeth fight in the finale. And then, of course, the stuff with Ahsoka and Anakin in this show, just incredible. And I guess Anakin, you guys, like, that's another big cameo that we didn't necessarily touch on, but, like, Anakin's involvement in this show, I thought was done to perfection. Does it still have me, you know, asking some questions, like, how was Anakin not a Force ghost in the World Between Worlds? Like, what was going on there? Stuff that still has me raising my eyebrow a little bit. But regardless, I still enjoyed it. I mean, my goodness, those Clone Wars flashbacks, you guys, that was incredible. And I've seen so many people, you guys, like, after those Clone Wars flashbacks that are like, oh, give us live action Clone Wars, give us live action Clone Wars. And I sit there and it's like, I understand the sentiment and I get what people are trying to do. And trust me, I would enjoy a live action Clone Wars, but I think the animated Clone Wars, you guys, like, that show holds such an important place in my, you know, fandom for Star Wars that, like, I would have very high expectations. I feel like the show could be a letdown in certain places if they're not careful, but I would have confidence if Dave Filoni was running the ship. If it was like anybody else that was doing it, I'd be like, nope, I don't want it. Because then what you're going to get into is people changing the story and doing what they think needs to happen. And I don't want that. Especially because I don't want them to just, like, retcon the animated series. I would hate that. The show is too important to me, and it's been such an important part of, like, ever since my childhood to right now. And honestly, you guys, I would rather, if they're going to start doing more live action Star Wars, I would really like them to put their focus into other parts of Star Wars. Don't do something that's kind of already been done. Like, let's go back. If you want to do some, you know, stuff that involves wars and Jedi and everything, let's go back to the Old Republic. Let's start, you know, tackling that era of stories that has not been told yet. On the television screen, of course. Because there is plenty of Old Republic source material out there, contrary to what Kathleen Kennedy might tell you. No source material, my balls. So yeah, you guys, I think that wraps us up for this week. I am so excited to see what they do next, whether that's an Ahsoka Season 2, whether that's the Dave Filoni movie. I am very excited to see how this story progresses going forward. But you guys gotta let me know in the comments below what you thought of Ahsoka. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, help me reach 1,000 subscribers, and I will see you guys next time.
Ahsoka is another story where you can step in at any point and not feel that you necessarily have to have seen everything.